Okay, here's video from this is a CNN video of a press conference that happened. This is the police chief for that area of Ohio where the woman was shot in what appeared to be, again, an effort to stab someone else. Here's the police chief being asked exactly that, one of the dumbest questions I've ever heard in the history of humankind by the media, and that's saying a lot. Why don't you just try to shoot them in the legs? Here it is right here. By the way, listen to the answer, because the police chief clearly knows what he's talking about, unlike the media buffoons who don't. Check this out.
Can an officer shoot the leg? Can they shoot somewhere that would not result in a fatal wound, right? So a lot of people have said, couldn't he have just shot her in the leg so she dropped? Could he have shot her in the arm, something like that?
Right, one of the difficult things with that is when you're trying, we don't train to shoot the leg because that's a small target. We train to shoot center mass, what is available to stop that threat. There was a threat going on, a deadly force threat that was going on, so the officer is trained to shoot center mass, the largest part of a body that is available to them. When you try to start shooting legs or arms, rounds miss, and then they continue on, and there are people behind that could be in danger that are not committing anything. So we try and minimize any danger to anyone else if we have to use our firearm.
Why don't you just shoot them in the leg? Why don't you just shoot the knife out of her hand? Folks, this isn't Invasion USA with Chuck Norris. It's not The Matrix. Trinity and Neo are not going to come to save you, okay? This is not Return of the Jedi, where Luke gets his force powers and like the snowman, the abominable snowman beast is coming to attack him. And he's like, and there you go, the lightsaber, and he cuts his feet out. This is the actual real world. Can I be candid with you for a moment? Well, you don't have a choice. Well, you do. You can tune out of the show. But some of you listening, I hope you'd stay tuned for this. I was working out this morning, putting together the show in my head, and I thought, do I even address this stupidity? Why don't we shoot them in the leg? Because there's a significant portion of my audience, like 90%, who are super smart. 10% are liberals who listen in and are morons, but they're here anyway. It's just true. But the 90% are smart. I thought, why waste their time with this stupidity? But I thought to myself, maybe it is my responsibility to talk to the 10% liberals listen to the show who really believe in, why don't you shoot the knife out of her hand? So I did my homework this morning, unlike liberal journalists, and I found a pretty good article from the Force Science Institute, one I think I may have used before. It says, why shooting to wound doesn't make sense scientifically, legally, or tactically. This article, by the way, will be in my newsletter today. Please read it. Bongino.com/newsletter. In the interest of time, I can only cover what I feel are the three biggest takeaways, but it's a genius piece on why we don't, as police officers, shoot people in the leg or arms. It involves basically three things: reaction time, mass, and mobility. It's not even physiologically possible, I'll get to that in a second, to do what you think you're doing by trying to shoot in the arms, legs, and hands. Second, you want to try to hit what you're shooting at, or you wouldn't be shooting at the person because they're doing something you need to stop. So you aim for the biggest mass, not the smallest. Third, the mobility of what you're trying to hit. It's harder to move your torso than it is to move your hand. Torso, hand. Torso, hand. You doubt me? Don't worry. We always bring evidence in this show because don't ever insult me by calling me a journalist. We actually do facts. From the Force Institute piece, quote, hands and arms can be the fastest moving body parts. For example, an average suspect can move his hand and forearm across his body to a 90-degree angle in 12/100ths of a second. He can move his hand from his hip, where you'd keep a gun, to shoulder height in 18/100ths of a second. Guy's doing it right now. This is you didn't think I caught it. Guy's practicing this right now. I'm not kidding. The average officer pulling the trigger as fast as he can on a Glock, one of the fastest cycling semi-autos, requires a quarter of a second to discharge each round. There's simply no way an officer can react, track, shoot, and reliably hit a threatening suspect's forearm or a weapon in a suspect's hand in the time spans involved. Listen, folks, I am deeply sorry for the smart people who listen to my show. You should never say this on your show, but I have my sincere apologies. They tell you, don't apologize for your content. You wouldn't do it. No, I have to. I have to. Because if we can even change the minds of 1 out of 100 really ignorant liberals who actually believe this stupidity, maybe it'll do us some good if they go on to be a public leader one day. It's not even physiologically possible. A subject can move his hand at a rate far more rapid than an officer can respond to that hand, engage, and then shoot the hand that is moving. The conservatives listening to this are like, I can't believe you have to explain this. I'm sorry, sir or madam. Thank you for listening to my show. I sincerely, you are everything to me. I am sorry to waste your time. But there are probably liberals who are hearing this for the first time, who were like, oh, it's not even physiologically possible to do that? Then maybe I should stop arguing for stupid stuff. Out of 100 liberals, maybe one will wake up. So number one, it's not even possible to do. You'd think I would leave it there. No, there's actually more in this article about why this is a really stupid idea. For Science Institute, quote, the upper arms, where your biceps and triceps are, in other words, move. I'm sorry, folks, there are liberals listening. We have to be slow here. The upper arms move more slowly than the lower arms and hands. But shooting at the upper arms, there's a greater chance you're going to hit the suspect's brachial artery or center mass areas with a high probability of fatality. So where does shooting only to wound come in when even areas considered by some to be safe from fatality risk could in fact carry the same level of risk as targeting center mass? Folks, the lower arm moves fast, hands, fingers. The upper arm moves a little slower. Why? It's closer to the joint attached to your torso, which has less mobility. Well, why not just shoot the upper arm when he's got the gun? Or she has the knife in this case. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as the author points out, there's a penetration factor to these firearms and these rounds. If you're shooting the upper arm, number one, you have major arteries. You will probably bleed out and die anyway. And number two, it'll probably penetrate, if it's anywhere close to the body, into the torso anyway. So you have a lesser likelihood of stopping it because you can't hit the upper arm because it's smaller, or it's very difficult to do it, smaller than the torso. And secondly, you'll probably hit the torso anyway. So what's the point? There is no point, but you're a liberal. So not having a point is the point of your whole life. I've got it, though. There are liberals listening who think they have the answer. They'll say, Dan, you're being deceptive. The question was, why don't we shoot them in the legs? Well, for the exact same reasons you discussed before. Legs are smaller, they're mobile, they move, they're harder to hit, and they're densely vascular too. Here from the For Science Institute piece. Legs tend initially to move slower than arms and to maintain more static positions. However, areas of the lower trunk and upper thigh are rich with vascularity. Liberals, that means blood vessels. A suspect who's hit there in the leg can bleed out in seconds if one of the major arteries is severed. So again, shooting just to wound may not result in just wounding. On the other hand, if an officer manages to take a suspect's legs out non-fatally, that still leaves the offender's hands free to shoot back. His ability to threaten lives hasn't necessarily been stopped. So why don't we shoot? I think the arms case we've thoroughly debunked. Again, for 1 out of 100 liberals, 99 still believe Invasion USA and the Matrix, okay? I get that. Science and data is not their thing. But maybe 1 out of 100 is going to say, okay, the arms thing doesn't make sense. But the legs thing, they're mobile. They're harder to hit. You're not going to stop anything, and you could die anyway. So what's the point? Why would you shoot if you deemed deadly force was necessary at a target you likely can't hit that could kill the subject anyway, and that's not going to actually stop the subject from killing someone else? Why would you do that? Because you're a liberal and you don't know anything ever about anything. You just talk. You telling me that this media guy who asked this question at the press conference couldn't go to a search engine and put in, why don't police officers shoot people in the leg? You'd find that article right at the top. Go to my newsletter. Media people, you can read it yourself.